There wasn't much happening in Tampa during the Civil War, or for that matter, after the Civil War. The Industrial Revolution was pumping new money into the North, but it was bypassing the South. It was also the time of the Gilded Age, La Belle Epoque, a time of opulence and leisure. In Tampa, there was plenty of leisure, but not much opulence.
It was a sleepy little town. They were mainly in the vegetable business, and they raised oranges. All of downtown Tampa was an orange grove, you might say. And they did a lot of fishing. So it was a small community, just barely existing, you might say. There was very little contact with the outside world.
Railroads would finally make that contact. A tremendous system of trains and boats was reaching into the Southeast like veins feeding a beating heart. Connecticut-born Henry Bradley Plant was building up his empire, the Plant System.
And so he would be in the express business throughout the Civil War, and then up until around 1879. Then he went into the railroad business, financing and also taking over bankrupt ones, but he began to acquire railroads leading into Florida.
Plant brought the first railroad into Tampa in 1884. He developed Port Tampa with a deep water channel and connected the rail to his steamship line. He literally opened up trade within the state and from Florida into the Caribbean, jump-starting this tiny port community into the 20th century.
When he brought the railroad here, a tremendous fishing industry moved in, which brought in a lot of business, a lot of money, and they were shipping it by railroad all over the country. But the big impact was when Mr. Ebor, who had his factory in Key West, when he realized that the railroad had come to Tampa, he moved his factory here, and within about 10 years, from 720 population, Tampa had about 15,000 people.
This will be the first look at Florida for the channel, zoning in on Tampa. You can see you have the St. Petersburg area, Clearwater, and I tried to keep the visuals to the Tampa area, so there might be some spillover. Those of you that know the area will probably let me know in the comment section. Let's take a look at Old World Tampa. We got a little sneak peek in the intro as to the humble beginnings of Tampa as a city, with the population demographics, modern day, just about 400,000, and going back into 1900, we're looking at 15,000 approximately. Not a lot of people living here at that time. Here's an early shot of some of the downtown area, the old courthouse, one of the churches we'll be having a look at. A little bit of a different visual when compared to some of the regions we've looked at on the channel, such as Midwestern areas or those around the Great Lakes. More of what we might call a Moorish or Spanish look to some of these buildings. But again, having that old look and feel, contradicting that historical narrative that's laid out for us in many of those types of documentaries that you will see. And I will put the link to that full video in the description. It's worth a look, definitely. They really are setting the narrative for the creation and establishment of that fantastic hotel in Tampa. And buildings like this not really making a lot of sense when it comes to that, again, those humble beginnings of orange orchards and fishing like they try to portray in the video. And then we get these old structures that look like they're built like a tank. Very interesting and not easy to do. We have a sanatorium. You see it in the Spanish language here. It looks like 1904. They've thrown the date on the front. We've got a fountain out front as well. Here's a look at the grounds, the layout of the grounds. I believe it's the same structure. The auditorium. So you're going to see these octagonal style roofs. Well, again, what we might dub colonial Spanish look, which I suggest is just another offshoot of the old world civilization having these regional differences. There's the interior of that auditorium. We have a very, very early bank here, but you can still see in the construction methods we're using very heavy materials. They're using that ornamental molding and brickwork like we're used to seeing on all these old world buildings. And again, so it's a little confusing if the Tampa Bay area, which I think includes all of these, St. Petersburg. This may be St. Petersburg as it looks like here, but definitely worth including in this one. This is a very interesting structure on the water. We have seen structures on the water in many other places, Salt Lake City, quite a few locations actually. Galveston, I believe, had a bunch as well. I think a part of the old world lifestyle. Alright, an old clubhouse. So the Lafayette Street Bridge. You can see the streetcars in full effect here. Again, remember the minute population really for the time period. Streetcars, according to our historical narrative, coming and going in a relatively short period of time. But often looking and feeling like they've been around for much longer than we've been told. There's the government building. We'll be taking a closer look at that as well. Or the federal courthouse, as it's been dubbed. I believe it's a hotel now. Again, locals, let me know. I love it when you add a little bit more texture to the video. I don't know much about the region. I'm just trying to bring you the visuals. The castle hall. Very interesting why you'd put a turret there. Looks like a clubhouse. The Cigar City. Pretty grand looking structure, if you ask me. Oh, and I believe this is the interior of that clubhouse. Very colorful. You have this interior stucco look. I wonder if that's original or if that's covering. I'm not sure. But you can see the ceiling. These are the rosettes we often see, surrounded by something a little bit different. But old world stylings, very ornate work. We have a corner Baptist church with the dome and the cupola. It's looking like the 30s or 40s. You can also see the brick pavers on the streets here. Looking like a repurposed building, as well as this one church, First Baptist. Again, horse and buggy era, sorry. Looking very pristine. Quite a few churches in the area. This one's very interesting as well, with the very steep roof. Somewhere between a spire and a roof. See if I can get closer to show you the tech on top here. Interesting, this as well, looking like, a vertical with a circle and 4 points coming off it, not looking like a cross, which is what you would expect on a church. The Holy Trinity Church, this one. A little bit of a closer look, give you a sense of the brickwork and the molding that goes into building such a structure. The Catholic Church, they're calling it here. This is a better look at it, and you can see the dome, spectacular looking dome in the back here. We saw this in the initial photo of from the file. This is interesting too, just a little building nearby with that Moorish styling onion dome. And we'll look at the interior of this Church of the Sacred Heart. and get a couple looks at it. Well, Wikipedia gives us a 7-year timeline, 1898 to 1905. Remember, not a lot of people living here at the time. You have to wonder, again, about the story we've been given. Especially when you're looking at this amazing finish work on the interior. Very interesting up here, too. What are these? Deer? Male and female deer? I'm not sure. Interesting. There's the pipe organ. Early 1900s, they love throwing in pipe organs, right? It was just the way things were done, or was it reclaimed from the past? We have fantastic granite columns. We see these column capitals quite a bit in Old World architecture as well. Another looking up into the dome and spectacular stained glass windows. 1905, really? In Tampa? 1905 in Tampa, 20,000 people living there, so not sure how much I buy that one. Here's the City Hall at night. I have a few shots of the City Hall. I like it when they put the new City Hall in these, just to let you know in the postcard that it was just built, in case there's any doubt going down through time. There's a nice photograph of it, early days photograph. Unique looking structure, interesting looking building. A little bit of the detail that you'll find on this building. Another look at it. Again, early. This is even earlier time period, you can see. We're being told it's built in 1915. So, does that look new for that time period? The old Davis Island Coliseum. And then a quick look at the interior. You can see the ornate stylings around the stage area here too. Having that feel of the old world. The need to decorate. This is just a look at a cigar factory I wanted to throw in there. You can see the brush or the growth coming out of there, indicating quite old. Quite old indeed. Alright, a closer look at the courthouse. So it's not just the hotel that we'll be looking at that had this styling. And Wikipedia will tell us that this was built in 1892 by the same architect that designed the hotel in the Moorish styling. And it was demolished in 1953. As you do, you must demolish these type of buildings if you want progress in your city. Really spectacular dome, cupola, Moorish styling for sure. Just a quick look at the entryway. Really fitting the architecture of that hotel, because it's the same architect, they'll say. But I'm not sure. If a relatively obscure architect. Spectacular building. What do you think? Alright, we have the Cuban Club. There it is, a little bit crisper, a little bit cleaner. But you're getting all the hallmarks. You're getting the arched windows, and you're getting the columns and the elevated entryway. Very much the look and feel of the old world. And here we see a bank. I don't know if they're trying to tell us this is under construction or if it's just the sidewalk around it. Interesting looking boxy building with the grand columns. No doubt a very high ceiling on the inside there. This is a closer look at that federal courthouse now. And we get a timeline of 1902 to 1905 when this thing went up. Wow, that must have been construction madness in the city at that time. And you'll tend to see this as you do the research. You'll see that very same time frame for many of these structures. So it's not the questioning of them being able to build one of these at a given time, but multiple massive old world structures within the same period of time. It becomes very implausible. And just to give you a sense of how these things go together, I have a few close-ups for you. This is the detailing on the entryway, one of the entryways. And some more detailing, looking like it's probably on the ground out front, looking like it. I can't be sure. Very interesting. First National Bank having a bit more of that bulgy stone look, which we see in more of the Midwestern areas. The facade on the front, and you can see it's brick going down the back, but you have those Romanesque style arches. So interesting to see that one here. The First National Bank. Bit of detail at the top that's hard to zoom in on. And then this is an interesting one too. The high school, Hillsborough High School, looking very abandoned. You look at the ground around it. You can see that it doesn't look like it's in any sort of heavy use. Like it's being reclaimed is what it feels like to me. No scaping going on. This is all overgrown. It's like they're dressing it up and getting it ready for use. Interesting. The old hospital, municipal hospital. See the old brick stack there in the background. This is interesting as well. You can see right through there. This looking like the same part, but it's got the windows in there. So again, I know it's a postcard, but what's going on here? Are they replacing windows, or was there ever windows to begin with there? Hard to say. The DeSoto Hotel. I thought it was interesting too, Tampa having, is it the Hillsborough River flowing into the bay there. Hillsborough River coming from the swamps, fed by Crystal Springs, I believe. Now, I've talked a bit about the spring water, natural spring water, in multiple locations. We looked at Eureka Springs. I did a video on Saratoga Springs. They really are everywhere, and implication has been by researchers in this field, especially in the mud flood reset field, has to do with the springs being a part of the old world plumbing infrastructure. Places that have been devastated now. So for a lot of people, that's quite a stretch, but I think it's very interesting, and it seems to blend with these locations that have these old stone structures. So it's interesting. Hillsborough Hotel. Quite a few hotels, and these would have just popped up. All these things would have to have sprung up within that several decades for this all to be intact at this time period here. Going from orange orchards and fishing to a tourist center, thanks to Mr. Railroad himself. It's a likely story, and we see that story repeat itself all over. I like this photograph because it really gives you a sense of the texture of the area. You can see the brick streets, you can see the streetcar still here, and these buildings here all having that old world flavor. Very interesting. Nice photograph. The Terrace Hotel. And I think this is the one we're just looking at. Yes, it is. From the front. Okay, we come to it at last. The Tampa Hotel. We have quite a few shots of this one, but if you watch the video that I took a clip from at the beginning, they really well walk you through the process. This was built in late 1880s, early 1890s. Much fanfare had to do with its opening. The gentleman himself went to Europe and gathered all sorts of furniture to furnish the place, and yeah, a very Gilded Age cookie cutter story we get for this location. But let's just take a look at according to the official narrative, 130-year-old hotel, which is now a part of the University of Tampa, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this is really quite a hallmark. A very eye-catching hotel. Pretty amazing. Very difficult to believe the official narrative on this one. Feeling like there's much more to the story here. Not making a lot of sense. These old railroad barons making the states. Right? I think it was there much longer, and They're narrative placeholders, really, for this short period of time they're trying to cram history into for us here in North America especially. Would have been quite the place to stay, as you can imagine. And just the amazing amount of ornate detail all over it. Spectacular. I don't doubt that there was a lot of fixing up that went on, but I do think that they're reclaiming something that was there. That's how I look at history now. Nice look at the hotel. A couple views. You can see circular window up here. You can't just lean on an architect to build this. Like this all has to go together with precision. So the skilled laborers that you would need, artisans, would have been off the charts, the amount of people that you would need. And this is going on all over at the same time. We see these types of buildings going up all over the States at the same time. And this is just giving you an idea of the brickwork, the intricate brickwork. Let's have a closer look. Look at that. All the way around. And just to compare and contrast, this is a close-up of St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow. Supposedly 600-700 years old. Just to give you a sense. And not the best resolution, but you can see the brickwork and how crisp the brickwork is. And then we'll compare that again with the Tampa Hotel. And so you have to ask the question, really, how old is this place? If that cathedral is 700 years old, and in that condition, how old is this place really? Certainly begs the question. If you ask me, I don't think it was sprung up with the dollars of a railroad magnate and some architect who had some fancy ideas. This thing's been around for a lot longer than that. Alright, let's move on to the Lafayette Street Bridge. And you can see the hotel in the background there. Interesting shot here with the streetcars, looking like a integral part of the transportation system in Tampa Bay. They say there was two phases of this. There was an earlier street bridge that got upgraded in the 19-teens to this version. So I'm not sure what to make of any of that. But nevertheless, we're going to be looking at a little bit of the early infrastructure in Tampa Bay. And remember, all of this having to have come together in a very short period of time. I think one of these is the early hotel that was mentioned in that video as well. And another nice street scene with the streetcars, just to give you an idea of early Tampa. Looking quite built out, actually, for the size of the city at the time. This doesn't look like it's much more than 19-teens. 1906, this one's dated too, so 20,000 people, maybe. Here is giving a good indication of the intricate brickwork on the sidewalks and the street as well. Well-established infrastructure. Alright, Masonic Lodge. Grainy, there it is. There's that hospital again. We saw that earlier. You can see its location actually is interesting. The banks are just straight cut up against the water, so a lot of work having gone on to landscape that as well. We're told this is a national city bank. Very interesting looking structure, old feeling. Looks like a hat. And there's that courthouse yet again with the church in the background. Can't get enough of these. These dormers are something interesting and special. Circular dormers coming out of the dome. We're coming to the end of the file now here on Tampa. I'm sure if you're from the area, you'll say I missed all sorts, especially if I were to have included St. Petersburg, which is an interesting tie-in with Russia. After I make the comparison with the Moscow Cathedral. Old World Florida is a channel you might want to check out if you want to know more about some of the hidden past of the Old World. It's very interesting. Dr. Narcolongo does some very interesting linguistic comparisons. Very interesting take on history, so I recommend his work. This is the same post office, federal courthouse, same building that we saw earlier. A little trade school out in the middle of nowhere. Of course, this is the Spanish Center. That's why it's built in such a manner. Yeah. The Rivoli Theater. Very old world bricky looking. Let's take a look at the inside. This may be the Tampa Theater. I'm not sure it's the same one. Apologize if it isn't. But you get a sense again of the beautiful ornate decorations that were going on. Or that were here, I should say. Depending on how you want to look at history. And if you want to question it or not, it'll be up to you. The Tampa Theater, again. And you get I know it's not a great photograph, but you still get a sense of the ceiling. And I believe this is that same area we saw earlier with those stucco walls. So they still have those stucco walls here at this time period. So maybe they're original. And there's a nice look at the stage. You can see the organ. Very interesting. Alright, a few more. The Tampa Theater. So this would be the theater we were just looking at. So there are more than one. And you can see the ornate styling going on up here. Very much so. Very interesting looking. It's somewhat plain, and again the bottom gets a bit of decoration. So we see that quite often as well. The top and the bottom get the most decoration. Onto a Union Station. The old bricker. This is the Vinoy. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Looks like a hotel. Might be St. Petersburg, but again, not sure. And if you're local, please correct me if I'm wrong. This is the top of that, just to give you a sense of what the decoration looks like on there. Ybor City, Y-B-O-R, not sure, Ybor City, Ybor City. And we end with the YMCA, of course, as we do, and YMCA with some nice arched basement windows for you. Okay, so this has been a look at Tampa, Florida, our first look down at the peninsula. Won't be our last look, but what do you think? Did any of it surprise you? What were you expecting from Tampa? Thanks for watching.